What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the 19th episode of the Niche Notable podcast with Nick and 40. Today, we have a very special guest, Ty Long, six-year NFL punter, and he was a former captain for the Los Angeles Chargers. He did 2 years in the CFL, where he was a two-time All-Star there, and now he's a current kicking and punting coach down in Birmingham, Alabama. Ty, what's going on? Welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me on, man. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get right into it. What's your origin story with kicking and punting?
Man, I've kicked in games since I was 8 years old. I actually had this question the other day. How did I get into it? Something my dad just got me into young. I didn't really play soccer, but I've always had a passion for it. And man, I guess I kicked footballs for 32 years old now, probably 25, 26 years, and did it for a long time. And as I was transitioning out of football, I love kicking. I love everything about it, so I didn't know how I wanted to keep it a part of my life. And starting a kicking company was the way I was going to do that.
Yeah, for me, I've been a kicker punter for about 8 years, 10 years or so. And I just want more people to understand what the specialist world is all about almost. So that's why I feel like you're a perfect guy that came to mind for the podcast as a guest, just because you've been in through up all the way through the ranks. Now you're working with the young next generation of specialists. So I figured you'd be a great guest. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think I'm a little unique in the sense of I got paid to do all three at the highest level, and something my dad had always preached to me for a long time: the more you can do, the more you can do, and yeah, it's a crazy world out there, especially trying to navigate this whole whatever college football is now, and well, I guess it's pro football, but trying to navigate this whole thing. So getting to see this side of it is definitely been an experience, and I'm enjoying it. Just getting a mentor and try to help the younger generation.
Yeah, so you mentioned doing all three. So after your career at UAB, you joined the BC Lions in the Canadian Football League. And I saw that one season you had 44 field goal attempts. Is that correct? In
Yeah.
one season?
Yeah.
How did your leg not fall off? You're doing punting and kickoffs at the same time.
I think you can fact check me on this. I think it was for 2 seasons I had 92 field goals, and I went
Jeez.
81 of 92, I believe.
Wow.
And then I went and I had 230 punts, something like that, over 2 seasons, which is, yeah, it's crazy. The CFL is, it's a league for specialists. I'll tell you that. I mean, I would be averaging probably 5 to 8 punts a game, and there'd be a lot of games I'd have 3 to 5 field goals a game. Yeah, it's a lot of conditioning, getting your body in shape. At that point in my career, when I was training, I was essentially going to kick. I would go kick field goals for an hour, then I'd go punt for an hour. And then I'd probably finish with kickoffs as well. So I was probably doing all three in the off season, probably 3 to 4 days a week on a consistent basis. I just had to get my body built for it. So when the season came, I was able to handle it and last for 20 games.
That's awesome. Knowing the combos were doing that at the highest level. And then, so you come into the NFL, you get your gig with the Chargers. Your first game ever, Michael Badgley, the kicker, is out with an injury. So they plug you in, and you're kicking. I believe Tyrod Taylor was holding, and you're punting. You had a great game. Your AFC Special Teams Player of the Week that week, had a big field goal or two. Can you talk us through that experience, doing all three in your first NFL game?
Yeah, it's actually, I've never told this part of the story, and I'm about to tell you right now. Now that I'm retired, I don't really care anymore. But when I was negotiating my contract to sign with the Chargers, I wanted in the contract that a bonus for every game I kicked field goals, right? Because I had done it, in the CFL, and the Chargers were like, it's not going to happen. You're not going to kick field goals. It was like they were not budging on adding this X amount of dollars in the contract. And the Thursday before the first game, Badgley ends up tweaking his groin, and I'm holding for him when it happened, and I'm just like, okay, something's off, And I essentially found out on Friday, me and Tyrod's first reps were that Sunday. That first game.
Your first NFL game? Yeah.
Yeah, so the first reps I had with Tyrod was that Sunday. And
That's crazy.
I'll never forget. And Tom Telesco, who's a good buddy of mine, he's a great dude. I'll never forget. I'm walking out of the tunnel, and I was like, "Not gonna kick field goals, huh?" And just smirked at him. He laughed about it, and it was just one of those things, like trying to make light in a situation. But I was extremely comfortable in that situation. You don't see it much in the NFL, but I had just got done doing it for 2 years in the CFL, so uh, it was normal. Don't get it twisted. The pressure is CFL pressure is big. NFL pressure is it's a different demon. It's a different
Yeah.
beast, and so yeah, definitely, yeah. It was a big moment, cool story.
Yeah, so I had to look it up, and you were the first player in 20 years to make a field goal, make an extra point, and hit a punt in one game. I think it was 1997 was the first time before then. So
That's
that's
wild.
pretty awesome. Yeah,
That's
really
wild.
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So coming to the Chargers, you're able to garner respect from your teammates and become a captain on that team. How are you able to do that as a specialist? Because sometimes the stereotype of specialist, you're sort of off on your own. How are you able to garner that respect from your teammates?
I think about just how I would go about my business every single day. The same way I run my kicking company. It's how I show up every single day. I think my players that I train know that, and so that's what I tried to do when I was with the Chargers. Is you put a great performance on the field every single day. You show up, the same exact dude shows up every single day. Players can lean on you, and I'm naturally a teacher, and I think that's the biggest thing is I learned this in college. If I can make sure everybody else around me is comfortable doing their job, it will be easier for me to do my job. So naturally, when I was at the Chargers, I tried to any way I could help anybody who was on punt, field goal, something. I worked my tail off to do that, to make sure those guys were comfortable, and they knew I trusted them to do their job. So I think the biggest thing, I've just always tried to give those guys the amount of respect that to exceed it, right? That they normally get, especially on special teams, and show the passion and love for it. And just any way I could be a leader for those guys, I would try to do that.
Yeah, so just having that consistent sort of personality around your teammates, just showing by example, that's how you can sort of garner the respect, I guess.
Same dude every single day. I
Gotcha.
think that it's just a model of consistency. I look, I can tell you that being around Philip Rivers, and being around Justin Herbert, like that's a good example. Justin Herbert is the same dude every single day, and I think that's the one thing that is hard for a lot of athletes to replicate is, because life's going on, everything in our life is going on, but it's like, when you get in the building, are you able to shut everything off and just do your job, right? And I think that's something that I've always been able to do, and did it at a high level for a long time. And but yeah, I think the biggest thing is just being a teacher and just being a model of consistency.
That's good. And even in the social media world, there's always cameras on. You never know when someone's watching your actions behind the scenes. So you always sort of got to be in a professional mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I try to take pride in how I do everything, and by no means am perfect and all that, but it's just I try to really be um, aware, and just try to live my life in a professional manner.
Gotcha. So you probably played during one of the most odd NFL seasons of all time, that 2020 COVID season. What was that season like for you and your teammates playing? Was there any fans in SoFi Stadium during that year?
No, no, the COVID is like, oh my God, just yeah, very, very strange. You go out there, and I'll never forget, like the first half of the season, we had no fans in there, and then the second half of the season, fans were back, and you had to get used to getting chirped by the fans again, get used to playing in front of people again. The first few weeks was eerie, because like you're used to 70,000, 80,000 people being there, and there's no one there. So yeah, playing with COVID, by no means was it. It was still fun playing football, but it was definitely a different experience. Every single thing you did was watched, traced, the whole process. Just the job is stressful enough, but you were nervous if you were going to be standing next to somebody too long, if you were going to get kicked out of the game.
Yeah. I mean, and then going back to like playing with fans, if you're in a backed up punt situation, you got fans hollering at your back. Like, what are ways that you can sort of just tune them out? Like, what did you use back in the day? What type of
I
techniques?
would I'm always talking to myself. I always um I got asked to be mic'd up a few times, and I just didn't do it, because like if you hurt, like just how talking to myself in the third person a lot, the whole thing. But what I would do when I was backed up, I would sort of find a song that I would listen to, and I would sort of hum that song, because so many times when fans start yelling at you, you start to hear that they attach to you. And that's when I would just start talking to myself, hey, I'm built for this moment. This is what I do. This is where I want to be. Stuff like that. And I was blocking what they were saying out while feeding myself positive information that I needed to hear.
Did you ever have a go-to song that you would hum, or just spur
Uh,
of the moment?
Hell's Bells was a good one for me.
There you go.
A little AC/DC was a good one. There's a lot that was probably pretty consistent, but man, I listened to a little bit of everything. But normally on a game day, I rode pretty high. I liked, but a little rock, a little MGK, stuff like that.
That's cool. What would you say is like your number one most memorable NFL moment that you had? Something that you always look back on, you're super proud of, and just a memorable play.
Um, that's a good question. There's a few. I think the when I finally made the team, we were playing the Seattle Seahawks in preseason, and I had a backed up punt. We were playing in the soccer stadium still, but I'll never forget. I had a backed up ball, one step it, and hit like a 65-5-0 backed up. We get a 65-yard net, and that was like the last preseason game, and I was like, or maybe the second last preseason game, and I was like, oh, okay, and I sort of was trending that I was going to win the job, and that was a really cool moment for me. And then that first year when I was kicking field goals, people don't know this, I had a stress fracture in my fifth metatarsal on my plant foot, and I did it in the second game against the Detroit Lions, and didn't know I did it, and then played through it, and then I get to the Dolphins game, and it was just like unbearable, and little adrenaline, a little Toradol. I was able to make it through, and I ended up having three field goals that game, a 47, 51, and like a 45 or 40 or something like that. And I think being able to be really good when I wasn't healthy was really cool for me, especially that was still a pretty young part of my career, especially in the NFL, and being able to show that I could do it at the highest level. And that wasn't my main position. I was the punter, and being able to do that. You asked how I became a captain, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Best ability is your availability, just like doing
Absolutely.
whatever it takes, to get
Yeah.
the win at the end of the day.
Your
Yeah.
body's your business. You know what I mean? And like I tell all my
Right.
players that your body's your business. So you got to find a way to get healthy. And I take pride. I never missed a game. I might have missed a few practices because I needed rest, but I never missed a game in my career. And there's probably plenty of times that I could have taken the day off, but I also have respect and know how good the guys are on the streets. And if you let someone play your position, man, I literally have a career because a guy got hurt for 2 days in the CFL.
Mm.
That's how I got an opportunity. A guy got hurt for 2 days. GM walks up to me and he says, "Hey, you got 2 days to show us you're the guy." And
There you go.
rest is history.
Yeah. So during those training camp moments when you're competing with one other guy, how much are you focusing on like what they're doing? Or are you totally locked into I'm just gonna hit my ball, worry about my kicks, my punts, and just pretend he's not even there? Is that sort of the mindset?
Yeah, I think early on in my career, I was very just do my thing, don't worry about them, and as I got better and more mentally focused, I was very focused on what I was doing, but I wanted to know if they made a mistake. If they made a mistake, I was able to switch my mindset. It's like, bury them. Go now. Take the step. You know what I mean?
Right.
Young point in my career, I just needed to I would put my head down, act like I was tying my shoes while they were kicking, didn't look at it. But as I became more of a professional between the ears, I was able to sort of watch what they were doing, learn from their mistake. Yeah, if I'm kicking field goals, we have a windy day, I'm learning
Right.
off of their miss or their make. So, yeah, definitely young in my career. I didn't watch it, but as I got better mentally, I was able to still stay focused on what I was doing, but learn from their mistake in the process.
Of course. Yeah. I feel like the win's the biggest thing. Like you see the nose of their ball's telling a little bit or something like that, being able to adjust on the fly and build
Right.
off of what they're doing.
Yep.
Gotcha. So after your career, you get into coaching. What brought you there? I know you said you wanted to continue in the kicking world, but has coaching always been something that you've been interested in?
Yeah, so I've probably coached since my junior year of high school, just kids on the side here and there. And when when I was in the CFL, I built a small roster of guys that I was training in the off season, probably 8 to 9 guys. And then when I went to the Chargers, I pretty much, I was like, hey guys, I'm a little too bit, I'm busy at this point. And then once I started to take the step out of the NFL, about all those same clients sort of were still in high school or going into high school, and they came back and started training with me. And man, I just have such a passion for it. I coach 6 days a week right now. I love it. 2 years, 3 years ago, when I really started doing this thing, I was probably at 6 to 8 guys. I probably work with over 100 and 110 guys around America right now, and
Wow.
it's crazy how fast it's grown. But I take a lot of pride in I've grown, but the the product has not changed. I think if anything, it's gotten better. I get to do what I love every single day, and it's really cool. Really, really excited to go to work every single day.
How many times a week do you tell your kickers and punters to train, like during the off season? Like four, five,
Yeah,
or
I think 3 to 5, depending. I like to say 3 to 4, if especially if you're doing double days where you're doing punting and kicking. I think you could do three, and you could do a lighter day on that fourth. I think the biggest thing is a lot of it goes to rep count. Like if you're hitting 100 balls every session, maybe you go 3 to 4. If you're hitting 40, 50 balls, maybe you go five. A lot of the times when I'm training my guys, like our session we did today, was from 9:30 to 11:30. We did punting for the first hour, and then we did kicking for the second hour. And like those guys are probably kicking 4 days a week.
what's the biggest piece of advice that you give them as they get to the older years of high school to get recruited? Like, what are you telling them? What's like one key thing that you give them in terms of marketing themselves, like on Twitter or something like that?
It's connections. It is. I mean, so much. Obviously, look, if you go to a Coles combine or you go to a Sailors combine, win it, great. But how many people are doing that? Six? There's a small portion that are doing that. I don't think I ever won a Coles combine or anything, but a lot of these things, what I try to do and try to help them with these marketing is, so if you follow my pages, I give out free information every day and I've done that for almost a year now. And what I've been trying to do is have a place where coaches can learn, and now they also have a place where they want to find good athletes. Boom, right? So it's marketing and connections, and how do you market yourself? Like you can post to oblivion, but if it's not getting in front of the right people, it's tough. So my advice for a lot of guys out there is like find a kicking coach in your area. There's so many good coaches around America, and I think the biggest thing that has been successful for my guys is when I do talk to these coaches, I'm giving them really fair evaluations on, hey, this is what the kid does well, this is where he needs to get better, and try to help him in that regard. But in today's game, man, I don't know how somebody does it without a coach. Like, just because like if you don't play one season, if you don't start one year, like you could be in a tough spot, and then you get into that transfer portal, and that's not the goal.
Right. And then at your sessions, are you pushing like that competitive nature? You want guys competing next to each other, building off of each other. That's sort of the vibe of your training
Absolutely.
sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I think if you get enough good athletes out there, you don't even have to tell them we're competing. You just sort of know, and
Yeah.
so the biggest thing is it sort of happens naturally. And we do a lot of competitions at times. When as we were building up for camp season in these combines, I sort of was figuring out what competitions the Coles would do, and we would mimic those competitions in our sessions. So been trying to do that just so when they do get into that environment, it's not the first time they've been in it. You're going to be a little nervous when you show up to a combine and there's 500 kids there. It's a little. I remember the first time I got into that, right? And so just trying to get these kids into a competitive environment, understand what the competition is going to look like, is something I've been trying to do for my guys.
Yeah, I used to do that, those mock charting sessions.
Right.
Did you ever do like any visualizations before games? Like you would go through the game in your head before it actually happened?
Absolutely. Something my dad taught me that years ago, and I've probably visualized myself since freshman year of college. And man, it was to the point I had a routine of what the music, it was night before a game, throw on some headphones, throw on some calm music, and I'm just trying to control my breathing and just get to the point where I'm just seeing perfect reps, right? And then when I got to the CFL, I hired a mental coach and I had him for about 5 years. He was great, and a lot of the stuff I learned from him, I passed to all my guys, and a great investment in my career. And yeah, the visualization stuff is so big. The longer you do it, you get feelings and you get I don't know how to explain it. I just would get to a point where it's like I had ideas and I had real belief on how it was going to go tomorrow. And I think after you see yourself do it so many times, you just have that undeniable belief that this is how it's going to go. And I don't know how many professional athletes, punters, kickers can do it. I'd be willing to bet a lot are doing it. And because the mental game it's everything at the next level.
It's almost like you're going through the motions during the game just because you just let your muscle memory take over.
Right. And the
Cool.
brain doesn't recognize if it's real or not when you're seeing it. The brain thinks that, the brain's taking that in
Yeah.
as real. So it's free work, and I tell a lot of my guys, and, like when you're teaching kids, you got to tell them like 8 times, and, it's so many times I'm like, guys, I wish someone stopped me, looked me in the eyes when I was 16 years old and told me this. Take it if you want, but I'm telling you, do this, and it's hard to get into it, but once you start doing it, man, it's like I didn't miss a night before a game. And it got to the point when I was in the NFL, every practice is game day, right? So I was doing every punt period, night before punt period, or field goal period, I did it night before every practice. So it got to a point where I was probably doing it 5, 6 days a week.
100%. Yeah, I feel like the practices are harder than the games.
You got to do it 10 times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. All right, so last question of the day, niche notable question. So I saw online that you're a golfer.
Yep.
Who's your dark horse pick to win the U.S. Open this week at Oakmont?
I would love to say Jordan Spieth. I'm like waiting. I've been fighting for the man. When it comes to my friends, like I still believe it's in Jordan Spieth.
Yeah,
I also thought Rory getting the Masters off his back that he might go on a tear. But Rory's not much of a dark horse, right? I think Jordan Spieth would be more of a dark horse. But man, I would love to see Jordan Spieth. I would love to see prime Jordan Spieth, just the chaos around the golf course. Birding from the next fairway over. I would
sure.
love to see him back.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Like talk about someone that like loves their profession. Like he just loves golf. He loves the technical aspects of the game.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see him make it happen
Yeah.
for sure. It's been a long
Yeah.
time coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so that's all we got. This one was a really exciting one for me. I love the world of kicking. I'm trying to, speak the word of kicking to as many people as possible, get them to be more knowledgeable about specialists. So thank you, Coach Ty. You're the man. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, man.
And where can people, get involved and sign up for your training sessions?
Yeah. Hit me up on Instagram, Ty Long Kicking. And then my X account is trlong02, I believe, but you can just find me on Ty Long on there as well. But yeah, hit me up. I'm pretty particular who I take on. I think the biggest thing is I try to look, if you're serious about it, I'll take you on, but I need people to reciprocate how serious I am about this,
Right.
and, but at the end of the day, my job is to lead a bunch of men to God, help them with their kicking career, help them with throughout life, do the whole thing. And I try to be that all in one service.
That's awesome. All right. And
Yeah.
then if you're not in the Alabama area, you can on Instagram and go follow your tips. Like I saw you made the drop video. It must have been during a rain delay or something like
Yeah.
that. So go online and those are free drills. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man.
All right. So that's all we got. And thank you.